Hello.
Hello. I'm Laura.
Every week. I'm Claire.
Here we are again. We got a subject to talk about, haven't we?
We have. We're talking about the fact that it's Mental Health Awareness Week, and we're talking about health and well-being in the workplace. And we're also talking about the return of hugging.
Mm-hmm. Which happens when? When are we allowed to hug people?
Oh, I don't know.
The government decides that when we're allowed to hug people.
I don't know.
The world a weird place these days.
Weird.
Is it 17?
The Ministry of Hugging have decided.
Have reviewed the hugging, and they can confirm that hugging can commence on the 17th. I wonder.
I'm a massive. Go on.
I've been thinking about this.
What, hugging?
I've been thinking about hugging. Now, there's something that we explore in our training, in our holding space, our Reclaim Your Life training, and it's called the growth zone. It's called the comfort zone, and I think that this is really relevant for this. And what the growth zone is an understanding that we have a comfort zone that we can sit in. And when we are in a position where we want to learn something new, or we're stretching ourselves outside of our comfort zone, then we have the stretch zone. And the stretch zone is an interesting place to be in, because it's where growth happens, it's where learning happens. And then beyond there is the panic zone. And so each of us have different size comfort zones. Some of us have very small comfort zones. And what's happened over the pandemic is that many of us, our comfort zones have got smaller and smaller and smaller, because our lives have become more and more restricted. So for some, this new hugging, these new, like being able to go out and go to pubs, and these new lifting of restrictions will stretch us into okay, this is quite exciting. I'm stretching myself out of my comfort zone, and I'm learning, and I'm experiencing something new. But for a lot of us, this could be tipping us into a panic zone. And I'm interested how many people are feeling quite nervous about this possibility that suddenly the country is opening again, and we've been told for months and months how dangerous it is to hug people, to be near people, to be in social situations, and then suddenly off you go and be in social situations. And so I think that this real understanding of like my comfort zone has gone which means that my stretch zone is there, which means my panic zone is there. Like hugging could be a panic. And how many people in the UK are going to be feeling that panic?
Yeah, I hear you. And I find the whole Ministry of Hugging thing kind of strange. And I love that you do all this thinking about things. Well done. I tend to be a little bit more fly by the seat of my pants and just crack on.
What the frick am I going to talk about? I know. We've got what I love about the growth zone is it's this really visual, like I know where my comfort zone is. I know where my stretch is. And I know the signs of when I go into panic. I can feel my anxiety. I can feel my brain shutting down. I don't learn anything. And the thing with when I step into panic, I can't just go back into stretch. You've got to go back into comfort, reground yourself. And that's something that I really wanted to offer. If anybody is feeling this panic around, okay, everything's moving really quickly and I'm not ready. Just being really aware of how you create your own comfort zone. And then when you feel that panic, okay, how do I pull myself back into comfort so that I can reground myself?
There's some really interesting aspects to this, aren't there? Because we've talked about this a lot throughout the whole COVID pandemic thing. And someone said earlier, hang on, we've been in a pandemic for coming up a year and a half. We're not in it anymore? Where's it gone? Has it stopped? What's happened to it? So what I find quite interesting is absolutely, I think one aspect is, as you say, this growth zone issue. This, everything's become very small, and now we're going from comfort into panic. The other thing I think that's really interesting, and I think that the pandemic has brought to the surface for a lot of people, is where people actually might not have been comfortable in a certain situation, where they were railroading over themselves, where they actually maybe didn't like this particular person, or, you know, hanging out with those particular group of people. And yet it was so part of their normal that the pandemic actually gave them a welcome break from it. And so now going back into it is a bit like, do I have to? I don't really want to. So a lot of people have been saying, you know, I'm absolutely loving working from home and not rushing around. Actually, my partner's kind of been the opposite. He's like, wow, my eyes are so bored of just looking at these four walls. And he gets a little bit overexcited when he goes to Tesco's, and it could take him 2 hours. So he's like, I can't wait to be, you know, back on a train, and which is, you know, very different. So I think what the pandemic has brought to light is, like, for me, I used to drive half an hour to a gym and then half an hour back and do my thing at the gym. Now I'm like, why was I doing that? Like, it's perfectly good 8 minutes down the road. I'm not going to spend, and I was there because I knew the people, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. And I love all those people. I'm not spending an hour of my time to go, you know, just to spend time in a car and get stressed on the days where the roads are busy and I'm not going to make it in time. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So I feel like there's a lot of truth. A lot of the 2020, you know, perfect vision came out with this pandemic. So maybe our resistance to socializing could partially be growth zone panic. It could also partially be, I don't know if I want to get back into my old normal. And it's a really interesting one. I mean, I'm an incredibly sociable person, and I really love being out and about in the world. But I've really, really enjoyed the ability to have permission to not rush around so much and not see so many people, and be really discerning with where I put my attention, where I put my time, and where I put my focus, and not just have my energy leak out like that. And actually, because of that, I've become more productive. So I find that really interesting. So I think the questions that we can start asking ourselves, because we're real believers, aren't we, that anxiety gets a really bad rap. And I know that it is incredibly life limiting. And for the people who experience it, it is horrible. However, it is our superpower, and it is trying to tell us something. And when we learn, it's like we have to go to the X-Men school, don't we? And when we actually learn how to harness our superpower, it's actually telling us something. So if you're developing anxiety about going back out and about in the world, what's it trying to tell you? Is it just, okay, my world has got too small and I've forgotten how to go out and be in it? Or is it actually trying to tell you, I don't want to go back and do that thing. I don't want to be going back to that place. I don't actually like those people in my office. Okay, maybe it's time to change job, or if you can carry on working from home, how can we find more autonomy? So it is really interesting, I think. And I mean, I'm kind of a big believer in terrain theory, and I'm incredibly lucky that I don't have any underlying conditions. And I have other people who, you know, kind of feel the same. And so I have seen people, and I have, you know, done things within the government requirements. But, you know, like, we've had the opportunity to teach together. It's been absolutely joyous. So I feel really blessed that I have seen people, and also with our work, we've seen people, whereas a lot of people haven't. And so I can imagine it's been really, really kind of quite crushing.
You want to explain terrain theory? Do you want me to?
You explain that.
Ooh. Okay. Terrain theory was developed at the same time that the germ theory was developed. It was you had Pasteur, who was coming up with germ theory, that the reason that we have disease is because of bacteria and pathogens and viruses, which do play a part. But there was a guy called Beauchamp who was he was a biologist, and he, at the same time that Pasteur was developing his germ theory, he was going, hang on a minute, it's not just the germs that we need to be thinking about. It's actually the environment, our bodies, that create the right environment for pathogens to grow or to disease to thrive, or for good health to thrive. And this is absolutely something that we explore in our immune training, is this understanding. And one of the difficulties about the pandemic is I think a lot of the communication has been that there is this killer virus out there that is getting us. Without this real immune understanding that the environment, our bodies, our health is what dictates how we respond to the virus. So what I was really excited about when the pandemic first hit is that there was research that was coming through that was going, hang on a minute, a lot of people who are going into hospital in critical care are diabetic. What is that about? And I love those conversations because I think they're really important. And yes, absolutely, diabetics with the insulin imbalance, and particularly type 2 with the carbohydrate imbalance that we have in the Western diet, causing diabetes, and the deficiencies that we have in our soils and the stress that we have in our lives that are causing diabetes too. So then you're taking someone who has an imbalanced health, and then a virus happens and the body isn't equipped to be able to deal with it. So looking at the immune system, we need to be looking at, yes, viruses are something, the germ theory does stand, but we've got to be looking at the terrain theory. We've got to be looking at our environments. And so this fear that we've got, that this killer virus is coming to get us, I'm really keen to explore we can be empowered to do something about this.
And can we just, for a moment, just talk about getting the virus? Because yes, there are people where this is incredibly dangerous. I'm not disputing that in any way, shape, or form. We did videos literally the first week of the pandemic, brilliant videos, and we have said right from the beginning, fear not. There are people who this could affect massively. Although saying that, my dad, who has a compromised immune system, very compromised, damaged liver, who has autoimmune diseases coming out of his ears, who has all sorts of conditions, COPD, asthma, I mean, everything that you don't want to have with COVID, caught COVID. And I was literally on death watch going, right, okay, 6 days, because that's what we've been told. And he recovered after 3. Now he was very lucky, very lucky. So I'm not taking away from anyone else's experience. And I'm the human loss and is tragic. And if you have had that, I'm so sorry for you. So that what I think we're trying to explain is the getting of the virus. And I'm also not diminishing that, because I've had it and I didn't do too badly in it. I had a horrendous cytokine storm that was a really awful migraine, but you know, I had the equivalent of post-viral of long COVID after my birth trauma in 2004. So I've spent 16 years dealing with what they're now calling something like long COVID, which we've been calling since 2007 post-viral fatigue. So we deal with that all the time in our clinic. So I've dealt with that. I've had that. So for the last 12 years, I have been protecting trying to get my body out of something like that. And actually what was glorious to see when you look at something like terrain theory, because when I caught the COVID, because I have been I do believe in terrain theory. And what I want to come back to, so because I'm menopausal and we'll forget, please, let's just put a pin in it, and what the viruses actually do for us on the positive. So when I caught it, I kind of went, right, this is going to go one of two ways. I am either going to, because I've only been in remission for a year, haven't I? Yeah, just over a year now. And I was like, right, this is going to go one of either way. I'm either back in full on chronic fatigue, can't get out of bed, lying in a dark room, or I have done enough work on my body for it to be able to deal with this. Now, that's an awful risk, but quite frankly, that's the same as any flu. That's the same as any flu. And you know, I would take my chances with flu. And I've had flu a couple of times in my life, and it's no laughing matter, and it's not fun, and no one wants it. But one of the positive things that not many people have talked about, and we have, and the work of this incredible virologist that we've been following through COVID, he talks about the upgrades to our immune system that viruses give us. So exactly as you're saying, we're made of viruses. Our DNA, we're only 10% human. Our DNA is bacteria, viruses, and fungi. So we wouldn't have evolved as humans without this viral interplay. So the RNA injection that happens into our DNA is actually quite astonishing. Now, I know some people have been hit really hard with it. So if you've had it and you were hospitalized and it was awful, I am sorry. And I am not diminishing your experience in any way, shape, or form. And it's trying to tell you something. It's trying to show you something in your lifestyle. It might be diet, it might be stress, it might be toxic environment, it might be toxic relationships. It's trying to show you something. We believe this so passionately, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We believe this so passionately. And it's really challenging because, of course, then some people have died from it. But we also know that people die. This is so part of our reality. And people, we die from everything. That is, we're born, we die.
Mm.
It's so hard when we start looking at this from this bigger picture. And one of this favorite virologist of ours, if check out Zach Bush, he is utterly glorious. He's utterly glorious. He is a virologist, microbiome expert, end of life doctor as well. I mean, he is so beautiful the way he talks about life and death. Incredibly intelligent man. And he talks about this in such an incredibly well-rounded way, with lots of science that's really understandable about why not to fear this. And actually, what if COVID came along, because this isn't the big pandemic, and I've said right from the beginning, yes, this is an awful flu virus. However, if this was something like Ebola, but with an R rate, the kind of thing like measles has got, of like, what's measles? Something like 5?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh,
So like,
measles is like 12 to 17.
right, 12 to 17. So really, really contagious, really contagious. And with something like a hemorrhagic fever like Ebola, where it's something, well, I don't even know what the survival rates of Ebola are, but they're low. They're low. Wow, we'd know about it. We wouldn't be going to the supermarket. No one would have been fighting over that pasta. No one would have been fighting over that pasta. We'd know about it. And what if the COVID was actually part of an upgrade in our RNA, in our DNA, to make us more resilient to be able to cope with the next thing? Our bodies are struggling. We deal with this week in, week out in our clinics. It's what we teach. Our bodies are struggling with processed food, with the broken soils, with the toxic chemicals, with the gadgetry, with the stress. Our bodies are not coping. And I truly think that COVID has shown us that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the big issues with this, like with the country opening again and the stress that this is causing, we often see this huge connection between stress and the immune system. Stress and high cortisol absolutely crashes out the immune system when there's high cortisol. Cortisol is an anti-inflammatory, and that might sound like a good thing, and it can be for someone who's got, say, an autoimmune condition. But we need inflammation for the immune system to do its job, to be able to repair. So if we've got high cortisol, then we do have a compromised immune system. And so this, being stressed, it's why the Zach Bush, check it out, the Why Not to Fear the Virus talk is important it's a beautiful, beautiful talk, is that our stress around the virus is absolutely something that needs looking at, because if we're going out into the world and we've not seen anyone, and we're going out and we're feeling really stressed and really anxious, we're going to have a compromised immune system. Even if we don't get COVID, we're
Yeah.
going to be picking up stuff. I'm really interested to see what our immune systems do on the back of everything opening up.
Yeah.
And particularly if everybody is anxious and stressed about it. There's going to be
Yeah.
colds and flus all over the place.
I absolutely agree.
Because we also believe in the hygiene hypothesis, which is where this again comes into this understanding. And there's been some amazing research coming through. I think it was 2010 that the Human Microbiome Project finished, where we had this understanding that we are just one giant big pathogen, that we are more bug than we are human. And so like we are meant to come into balance with bacteria and viruses and pathogens. And if we have been obsessively cleaning our hands, and I know the necessity for that, and I understand why the rules around that were important, but being incredibly clean compromises our immune system. Look at the hygiene hypothesis.
Yeah,
And so then we've
exactly.
got these incredibly clean bodies going out and mixing with lots of different germs that we've not had access to for the last 12 to 18 months. What's our immune system going to do?
Exactly. Actually, I've had some clients sort of messaging me going, I've got a cold. It's almost embarrassing to have a cold in a pandemic. Like, how have I caught it?
Mm.
How have I caught it? So I'm like this really big Harry Potter fan. And there's a character, you don't do Harry Potter, do you? There's
No,
a
but
character. There is a character in Harry Potter. She works for the Ministry and the Ministry of Magic, and she's called Dolores Umbridge, and she's not a very nice person, and she just keeps on hanging order by order of the Ministry, by order of the Ministry, and all these orders in these little wooden frames keep going up on the wall, and there's just more and 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 more until like these kids at this school can't do anything, and I'm like, feel like that. I'm literally like going every time another order. Dolores has been out banging up another order. And that's just, that's just how it's felt to me. And I understand about keeping people safe and I understand all of those things. But yeah, it's been an interesting year, hasn't it?
it has been a really, really interesting year.
And it has absolutely obliterated people's mental health.
Yes, understandably. I mean, the unthinkable has happened. And what fear likes to know the edges.
Yeah,
Fear likes to go, this is what life is, and this is where I fit, and this is what happens, and I go about my daily business. What fear doesn't like is the unexpected. There's suddenly
yeah,
everything, all of the structure in someone's life being removed, and all the certainty. Fear also likes certainty, which is really difficult because there is no real certainty in life. There's plenty of uncertainty. And so one of the things that we work with is this being in the world, being in life. We can't create certainty. We can't control it. These things happen. Pandemic, I never thought I'd experience anything like the pandemic in my lifetime. And so what we work with is how do we create the consistency and the boundaries and the edges and the safety within us so that life can happen and we go, it's okay, I'm safe in here.
mm,
Like when we're feeling panic and fear, it's because we don't have a home within ourselves to
yes.
ground us.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to move on from that a little bit because that's absolutely the work that we do, isn't it, in our Reclaim Your Life program and on our amazing Reclaim Your Life immersive, which is going to be life changing. And having watched now a few years of people go through this, it's utterly glorious just watching people shift and change and evolve and learn that absolute safety. I mean, it just, I remember clearly the day where I kind of finished, I suppose, putting those structures into place. And I remember literally waking up and the world looked different. And Nothing was ever the same again. My boundaries, my standards, the way that I'll spend my time, what I'll spend my money on, the way I look at the world, everything has absolutely changed. But what I want to talk about as well is I think mental health in the well-being week. I think May is mental health month, and then it's broken down into different things, I believe. So apparently, according to the Health and Wellbeing at Work report, published by the CIPD, in March 2020, nearly 2/5 of respondents had seen an increase in stress-related absence over the previous year, while 3/5 reported an increase in common mental health conditions. So that is absolutely shocking. Now, the problem is we're seeing so much of this in the workplace, but we're not really seeing the workplace do anything to tackle it. There'll be a little tick box of, oh, we sent an email around, or we sent a little PowerPoint around about workplace well-being, but we haven't really dealt with the issue. And so now there's been this big thrust of sending HR people on to do mental health first aid courses, which is great. But again, it's only scratching the surface. And we have this deep passion, don't we, in actually making health and mental health key parts to people's employment.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying if you're unwell, you shouldn't have a job. But it's about self-responsibility. And it's like, if you have really, really, really bad IBS and you know that it's triggered by wheat and you choose to have a Greggs at lunchtime, I having had so many conditions in my life where if I did something that my body didn't like, I would be in bed, and I'm self-employed. And if that means that I can't see clients, then I can't earn money. You know, why? I don't understand why health and mental health isn't an absolute cornerstone of companies' structure, and supporting people, and actually using the whole, hang on a minute, you need to be taking responsibility for your health. If you want us to pay you, you need to be able to do your job. Now, obviously, people get sick and people get unwell, and that's okay. But we have structures in place that you have to adhere to. And I know that my partner works for quite a big company, and I found it, you know, we both were absolutely finding it ridiculous that just after everyone sort of got locked down and sort of working from home, and suddenly PowerPoints were going out about how to stop yourself, how to have boundaries with the workplace, work-life balance, make sure that you're not getting overstressed, blah, 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 blah. So it was, you know, turn off, stop working at the time you're supposed to stop working, you know, go and spend time with your friends and family. And within 20 minutes, he'd had an email from members of his upline saying, could we have a meeting at like 6:30 at night? And he was like, no, I've just had a PowerPoint go around that God knows how much you've spent on it, telling me not to work at night.
Yeah. This is something that I think is exciting to explore, because it shows the culture of the company
And the value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the companies that do invest in well-being, and they see the culture of the business change, that their staff members are taking self-responsibility for their health, and they see staff morale go up, and they see staff sickness go down. I think when they actually have an experience of it, they can actually see the importance of it. But until a company's actually done that and seen it, I just don't think it's top of company's agenda.
No.
Because profit margins and sales and growing the business, that's the important thing. And I think that the mind shift needs to happen of the way that we are going to become a really profitable business that grows is if our workplace are dealing with their stress, dealing with their mental health, taking self-responsibility, are feeling supported, and it's got to be embedded in the culture.
Yeah.
And it can't just be the HR department. It
No,
can't just be coming from the top going, right, HR department, you deal with wellness. Right, that's dealt with. Now we're going to go and do this over here. It has to be
yeah,
something that is embedded throughout. Like you said, if the managers and the directors aren't making the changes, then how the hell is everybody else going to be doing it?
exactly. Exactly.
And we talk about this from both having worked, because we're both self-employed and we run our own business now. But I've had years of working in corporate, you've had years of working in a medium-sized business, and working in teams and working in departments, and so we've been at that pointy end,
Mm,
as well as having to run our own business.
mm, mm,
And
exactly.
we've had a conversation this week about, we've both noticed as our business is increasing and growing, and it's a wonderful, beautiful thing, and we're both deeply excited about this, but we've had to have the conversation of, hang on a minute, we're both working too much,
Yeah.
and we're working at the wrong time of day. Actually, we're working all day, all evening. So
All
lead
day,
by
every day.
example, shall we? Should we actually, do what we and we feel so passionately about walking our talk. So when we recognise that we are, and our health, both our health
Mm,
will tell us if we're pushing any of the
mm.
food boundaries or the stress boundaries or the working too much boundaries. And we had to have that conversation this week of, we need to review some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's so easy, isn't it? And we use this phrase a lot. It's the glorification of busy. If I'm busy, then I must be being productive. I must be contributing. I must be doing something. But actually, we end up being busy fools because we're just busying ourselves rather than it becomes a numbing and a distraction, and it just becomes a soothing technique. Actually, it's a way of hiding from our lives and hiding from our issues and all those kind of things. It's that classic thing, isn't it? I remember when I was getting divorced and people said, "Oh, throw yourself into your work." I was like, no, no. I mean, I do a job where I hold space for people for a living. I can't hear. I'm going through this awful experience. And also I had the worst menopause at the same time. I was like, I can't help other people. I am on shifting sand. Like I have not got a firm base to help anybody. So I had to learn how to be in stillness and actually get some hobbies and find a life that didn't involve just working every hour that God sent. Best thing that ever happened. But yeah, it is a really interesting one. And I think that businesses that keep promoting people to work harder, 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 I mean, that's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Those people who keep working and working and working, and we've seen it so many times in the clinic, is that we, as human beings, we are not machines. We
Yeah,
break. And then
yeah,
when we break, good grief, do we break? And this
yeah,
is where you see things like the long COVID post-viral fatigue. When a virus hits a very, very stressed, depleted, overworked, overrun, undernourished body, this is where we see the long issues.
yeah,
And then the
yeah.
repair work that needs to happen. So let's support our bodies, let's support our stress, let's review what we're doing before we even get to that step.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, so hugging and
I
mental
think
health and corporate wellness.
all in one top. And this is the other the crazy thing of like how healthy hugging is. Like we've talked about like the hygiene hypothesis and the need for bugs and bacteria, and we are one
Yes.
giant bug of bacteria. Actually hugging, and also we are human social animals, that hugging is incredibly healthy for us.
Oxytocin, endorphins, reduces
Yeah.
cortisol.
Reduces stress.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the best things you can do for your immune system is to pet a dog, particularly someone else's.
Hug the dog.
I literally wrap myself around my dog. He's massive. It's like a giant life-size teddy bear. And because they have this huge virome, don't they? Like apparently if you could look at a dog with how many bugs and bacteria and viruses are around them, it's like they have this huge aura of bugs and bacteria and viruses, which is one of the best things ever. And one of the reasons they sniff each other's bums is to increase that. It's why they have such good immune systems and why they can literally eat poop. So
I think like one of the healthiest people I know is my sister, who is a dog groomer. And I've actually just made that connection. It's because she's just around that dog virome all the time.
All day. In fact,
So healthy.
I saw your sister last week. We went for a bike ride, and it was really funny because we were talking about menopause, and I was like, "Oh, why did I have to specialize in menopause? It is not glamorous." And she looked at me and she went, "Can I remind you? I squeeze dogs' asses for a living." And I went, "Oh yeah, you win."
Hands down, every time.
You win. Yeah, exactly. And also sniffing earth, like getting all
sniffing dog bums. No, wait.
Sniffing dog's bums. Getting your hands into earth that isn't earth that you live on, so not your garden, but wherever you go to somewhere else and you go for a walk, get your hands in the earth and smell it, because there is 10 to the power of 31 of bacteria and viruses in that. So you are stimulating your immune system, and your immune system is growing stronger and more robust. And that is probably one of the other things that COVID is showing us. We are not out in nature enough, and we have ruined nature with pollution and pesticides. So yeah, sniff dogs, sniff the earth.
Not the bums.
Don't think that would be a time.
Brackets.
Yeah, and each other. Let's get hugging again.
Yeah, if you like hold the anxious part of you and go hug. Let's start a hugging campaign from the microbiome. Yeah.
Well, I remember back in the days when we did all of our, lovely courses that there was all those free hugs movement. I was really involved in one of them. Won't it be great when they're back?
Yeah, should we get some t-shirts?
Free hugs.
Yeah, for my microbiome.
You were so funny because at the beginning you were like, I'm fine with this. I decided I don't like hugging. And then after about a couple of weeks, you were like, oh no, I forgot. I really love hugging.
Yeah. I was like, oh God, I can't be doing with people touching me. And then I went, oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah, it's only
actually
so used to having a 2-year-old climbing all over you.
Oh, that is true. That is true.
Yeah,
actually, like human touch. Oh my God, it's just the most incredible thing for our health.
So incredible. I think probably what happened though was, referring back to what we were talking about, is you maybe just got a little bit more discerning about who you wanted to hug.
Yeah, maybe. So maybe I won't get the t-shirt made.
Free hugs.
Bit, there's no boundaries in my t-shirt. People will just start climbing on me. Hang on a minute. I didn't say you.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Not you. I have that on the back of the t-shirt.
Yeah,
not you.
Not you. I'm a huggist.
Any comments? Is there anything else we need to be talking about?
No, nothing.
I've got to go make sure that my son's in bed.
Okay, well, lovely talking to you. I'll see you next time.
Talking to you. Yeah, glorious. Oh, great. That was one of those talks where they were quite sporadic topics and it all came together.
I loved it. Well, tune in next time for next week's exciting topic.
Bye-bye.
Bye.